Hi, it's Leonore. Welcome to Soul Searching Tarot. Today I will be talking about birth charts. This is part 5 now, guys. So I've done part 1, 2, 3, and 4. I will leave the links in the description box of this video, so you'll get to see part 1, 2, and 3, and 4 in case you don't want to go back to all my uploads. I do have a playlist with birth charts, but you know, you'll see it in the description box. Just scroll down and you'll get to see the links to all of my birth chart videos, because I do start in baby steps. I do. And so right now, I have upgraded. And I wouldn't say so much upgraded. I would say that now we're at a pivotal moment in learning birth charts that are still basic. They're still basic, but I am going to be talking about the rising and the descending signs. I am going to be talking about Rahu and Ketu, which is the south and north nodes. And this all has to do with your birth chart, okay? Or somebody else's birth chart you're interested in. Doesn't matter. But the most important thing is that you have to know the time. You cannot get your descendant or your rising or ascendant sign, and you'll get to see that rising and descendant are just polar opposites, opposite polarity, okay? Just like the north node and the south node, polar opposites. And I do talk about polar opposites in part 1, pretty sure, if not part 2 of my birth chart. It's like, you know, astrology 101. You know, we all have polar opposites. I'm a Scorpio. My polar opposite is Taurus. And so I'm not going to go into depth. So if I had to describe it, I'm going into in depth when it comes to birth charts. Are you ready? Because I am. I think I am. I just want to apologize. I sound terrible. I know I sound stuffed up. I am stuffed up 250 days out of the year. I am. So, you know, if you hear me like sniffing, I hope I'm saying that right. I don't want to say that I just sniffed a line of cocaine or anything like that. I'm just literally just sick. It's just gonna sound like I'm sick, but you know. Never mind, I said that. Okay. You know what I mean. So, I do sound stuffed up. On top of that, there's this freaking party that has not stopped. It's like close to midnight, probably around where I live. And, you know, there's rules. Dominicans all of a sudden want to celebrate Columbus Day. No shade on that. I'm Dominican. I know how they work. I'm sorry, I have to drink tea because that's how sick I am. This is my 3rd time being sick in the last 2 months. So if I have to excuse myself, it's probably because I have to wipe my nose. But I wasn't gonna wait to get better. I have other things to do, and I love being in front of you to teach you these things, these basic things. So welcome, Soul Searching Tarot. My name is Leonore. Listen, in order for you to obtain your birth charts, you have to go to astro.cafe astrology, which I always leave the link to. You may not be able to click on it immediately or at all, you know, according to YouTube's mood swings. Sometimes, you know, I tell people just to copy it down on pen and paper, or if you could copy and paste, it'll send you straight to the link of your, you know, on how to obtain your birth chart. It's very important. You need your date of birth, where you were born, and what time. If not that's the exact time, that's okay. Within that hour, it has to be within that hour. I know where I was born. there was no time on my birth certificate. As a matter of fact, the first birth certificate I got, it's a Commonwealth country, so I don't know what the rules were over there. But the point is, my first birth certificate I got looked like I was born in the 1800s. Like, it was just so, it's such a, like a little piece of paper, not even like a 8 by 10. But I was able to obtain a newer version, but still the time wasn't there. But I know from listening to my mom and my grandmother, you know, I knew that I was born within that hour, just for this, because of the story she told me when she gave birth to her firstborn. That's me. Excuse me for a second, guys. I don't want to blow my nose in front of you, but I gotta work with what I have. I feel like a Scorpio today. And I'm going to go into that because rising and descendants are all about what mask are you wearing today? Are you wearing the Scorpio mask today, or are you wearing the Pisces sign mask today? So just so you know that my rising sign it's called also ascending, is Pisces, but my sun sign is Scorpio. And so rising has a lot to do with which mask are you wearing. No, I'm not kidding. Like, you're wearing two masks. And so that's the reason why I'm telling you, you should really know the time that you were born, because it is essential for you to get the information that I am going to speak about in part 5. Sorry, that was my Pisces side. It wasn't my Scorpio side. Anyway, all right. So I'm also going to be talking about Rahu and Ketu, which is Vedic sidereal. It is the Hindu version of astrology. I talk a lot about, just so you know, tropical astrology, which is more Western. But it doesn't matter what part of the world. People will practice either Vedic sidereal or tropical astrology. There's one or two other ones, but those two are like the most popular that I've seen in astrology. When I listen to astrologers, which I am by no means an astrologer. I always disclose that because what I'm doing is giving you basic astrology so that you can understand, especially so that you can understand your birth chart, because it is the most powerful tool that you could have, because it tells you who you are, where you need to go in life, why things didn't work out for you, and basically your journey. You know, it is your blueprint of your life. It gets better when you mature. It does get better when you mature, okay? All right, so birth charts are established through mathematicians. I mean, we're talking about historians, astronomers, astrologers. These people look at the constellation. And when they look at the constellation meaning a star, and the stars are the houses, the 12 houses, by the way. You know, and this is from Aries to Pisces. And so when they look at the constellation star and to see basically where the planet or this whatever celestial body is orbiting around it, then that's how you could pretty much get your birth chart. Or in our case, today, as I'm speaking right now, around the late, fall, or early fall, wherever, around Halloween time, basically, you get to see that there are going to be different planets that are in certain signs. For example, Pluto right now is in Capricorn, Mercury will be in Scorpio, Venus will be in Scorpio, the full moon that just passed was in Aries, Chiron is in Aries. We have Capricorn in its home sign in its home sign of Capricorn, Saturn, if I said that right. I think I said that right. And Jupiter in its home sign of Sagittarius, and it continues. And this is all, it affects us as a collective, just as the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. So the northern hemisphere, the pole star, orbits around each planet, and it takes about 2,100 years, 2,500 years, give or take, to orbit around each house. And so it was in the age of Pisces starting in 01 AD, and it entered the age of Aquarius last year. I do talk about the age of Aquarius little by little. I don't really have titles for them. Sometimes I'll put the age of Aquarius just so you know that I get downloads. When I talk about age of Aquarius or the age of Pisces, I need you to know where you came from, which is the age of Pisces, and where you're going, which is the age of Aquarius. That is how it will affect us as a collective, you know, us earthlings on this earth, in this world. And so birth charts are pretty much the same. All right, and I'll definitely get into depth with that. Now, I don't really talk about mythology that much when I do my signs, my zodiac signs. I finished all 12 zodiac signs finally since I started this platform. Libra was my last, and the only sign that I went to when it came to mythology, because when I talk about historians, mathematicians, astrology, you know, these people that collect this information so that you know what's going on in the universe as far as energy wise, or your birth chart. These people study mythology, in Latin, Judaism, Egyptian, Greek. Mythology has a lot to do with the creation of the universe. And of course, there's a creation of our world, of you know, God, you know. It's in the book of Genesis, you know, the creation of this world. That all has to do with God, goddesses, demigods. It also has to do with demons. You know, yes, absolutely, same thing. It doesn't really, astrology doesn't really sway too much apart from religion or science. It's pretty much the same evidence, you know, in some shape, way, or form. Yeah, if you're an astrologer, you'll see the dynamics behind it. It's crazy. And so in the Capricorn video part 1, I did go into mythology, and I don't go into mythology that much, but I wanted to do it. I felt so compelled with Capricorn, and I talk about Cronus, the god of time, and that's Saturn. Saturn is the god of time. It's a karmic planet, and I'll get into that as well. I know it sounds like I'm going all over the place, but I'm not going all over the place. I'm still going to be talking about north and south nodes, cardinal signs, which is basically the 4 points of the zodiac wheel. I showed this before in one of my birth chart videos. In polar opposites, these are pretty much a review but I'm gonna go more in depth. All right, so let's get started. What? We didn't get started yet, Leonora? All right, so I did talk about tropical astrology, Vedic sidereal. I'll get into Rahu and Ketu, and you'll get to see the difference between how tropical astrology represents the North Node and the South Node compared to the Vedic sidereal. And Vedic sidereal interpretation of the North Node and the South Node is Rahu and Ketu. Now, when you look at your birth chart, you're not going to look at your descending sign. Sometimes it'll come up, but it'll make sense because I'm going to show you drawings, guys, because the whole video is probably going to be about my little index cards. So I've shown you this drawing before. I know it's not like 100% as far as my circular zodiac wheel, but we always start at Aries, you know, because it is the spring equinox. It's ruled by Mars. Okay, I'll see if I could get it a little closer so you could see it. This is the starting point. It's a cardinal sign. After that, it's Cancer. This is the summer equinox. It's ruled by the moon, Cancer. After that is Libra, which is the polar opposite of Aries. Opposite polarity, that's what it means, right? Venus is the ruler. And then we have Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn. Polar opposite of Cancer. Okay? Now, I've mentioned the polar opposites before with one of my other birth chart videos, but I'll show it to you again because it's very important. Because when you look at your birth chart, for example, my ascending sign is Pisces. I was saying that earlier. And Pisces is ruled by Neptune, right? And what is Pisces? Well, Pisces are all these things. It's a water element. Water represents emotion. Okay, these signs all have elements. They're either cardinal, mutual, fixed. Pisces happens to be a mutable sign. Flexible, adaptable. And what does this house, not the planet, this house represent? This zodiac sign. Well, pain and sorrow. And I'm sorry if some of them may be a little negative or on the shadow side. I don't mean for the whole thing to be negative or shadowy or malefic. I just picked 4 points of each sign and planet, and I just wrote it down. I just scratching the surface. But Pisces does rule pain and sorrow. Okay. It also represents saints or devils. It also represents the killer of all living things. Doesn't matter. It could be creatures, insects, people. It also represents sexual, physical, and verbal abuse. That is what Pisces, the house of Pisces, represents. So my ascending sign when I was born, where is my little other drawing? So when I was born, okay, so again, same points, right? I'm pinpointing here, right? Morning is Aries. This is the east. The sun, where was the sun when it was rising on the east? For me, it was Pisces. So if my ascending or my rising when I was born at that particular hour was in Pisces, because it moves every 2 hours. Every 2 hours. By the time it rotates, right? 24 hours in a day, starts back to Aries. When I was born, my rising, when the time when my soul entered this planet, was in Pisces. Now my sun sign is Scorpio, because of my date of birth, right? I was born around November. So that makes me a Scorpio. So now I have Scorpio and Pisces representing who I am, my personality. And so every hour, every 2 hours, day, night, maybe I skipped a day, maybe the next day I feel like a Pisces. I'll have those two combinations. And folks, it's not a surprise if your ascending sign, your sun sign, your moon sign, your Venus, or your Mars repeats itself. For me, my sun sign repeated itself in my Mars placement. So I have Scorpio has a sun sign, and I have Scorpio in Mars. Not surprising, because they all have polar opposites, because even though there's 12 zodiac signs, folks, in the end, there's 6. So what is the polar opposite of Pisces for me? Polar opposite of Pisces would be Virgo. So this is my descendant. My descendant is a Virgo, right? That means when the sun sets, you see dusk, morning, dusk, morning, evening. That's my descendant, Pisces, Virgo. Now, what is my north node and south node? Well, what are north nodes and south nodes? They represent lunar cycles. The eclipse, lunar eclipse. They happen to be, again, your spirit, your soul. It's a point where literally, like when you entered that planet, when you entered the earth, when you entered this realm, when you entered this plane, you came back from your past life, and you basically chose that pivotal moment to come into, because there's something in your past life that you didn't finish, that you didn't conquer, that you need to become pretty much obsessed with. Because if you don't conquer it in this lifetime, you're going to repeat it in the next. And God forbid, if you stray away from it and refuse it, you'll start all over again. Our goal, folks, is to become close to the divine, if not be divine. I know that sounds dramatic, but you haven't heard nothing yet. Yeah. North node, you'll see north node. You won't see south node, but again, it makes sense. If my north node is Sagittarius, which it is actually, my north node, I entered this world, my spirit, my soul. So what do we have here? We have morning and we have noon. There was this moment right here that intersected where my spirit was like, boop. So now I have Scorpio has my sun sign. I have Pisces has my ascending or rising. I have Sagittarius has my north node. What does that mean for me? I would need to go into part 6 for me to explain that to you. but I'm going to try my best to explain it to you as much as possible. So what is the polar opposite of Sagittarius? So if my north node or my lunar north node is in Sagittarius, the opposite of Sagittarius, polar opposite of Sagittarius, is Gemini. So Gemini would be my south node or my south lunar node. I hope that made sense. You'll also see it, by the way, because I have here like MC. I don't know if you could see it here. So MC basically means your north node on your birth chart. IC is your south node. All right. I gotta take a break here because that was so much information, but I'll let that sink in for a little bit, okay, guys, before I continue. There is a lot to learn when it comes to astrology, and I love to teach. Is that a surprise, Sagittarius? Sagittarius. Fire sign, it is my element. Fire is passion. And what are all the fire signs? Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. So my north node is in Sagittarius. So what does Sagittarius represent? Scholastic universities. It rules these things, right? Church, clergy. Depending on your moon, it can create changes. Absolutely, it can create changes. I mean, we got Sagittarius, the Jupiter rules Saggy, right? How many moons do you think that planet has, that vast planet? About 79, I heard. It's the latest count. Okay, so depending where your moon placement is, folks, if you're a Sagittarius moon, especially, you will be affected by some internal or external conflict or crisis in your life. My moon happens to be in Aquarius. But because my moon is in Aquarius, don't think for one moment that the moons of Sagittarius will not affect me. Because my moon is in Aquarius, I should say. Because my moon is in Aquarius, I will be affected by these things. It does create change. It's a planet of expansion. It rules foreign travel, foreigners. Let's look at Jupiter. Because I always try to say this a lot, as much as I can, possible, that the planet affects the sign. The planet affects the sign. So, when I was born, my north node was in Sagittarius, right? Jupiter rules Sagittarius, which, by the way, it's in its own sign at the moment. It's a mutable sign, which means it's pretty much an adaptable, flexible house, planet as well. So we have cardinal, which represents action, and then we have fixed, which is like about being rooted or just fixed in their perceptions, not going anywhere. So Jupiter represents expansion, right? It also represents higher learning, knowledge. It represents taking risk, good fortune. This has affected me. My Jupiter happens to be in Pisces. So let's keep Jupiter here, because Jupiter in my birth chart is not in Sagittarius. It happens to be in Pisces. We were just talking about Pisces. So what does that mean? My Jupiter's in Pisces, so my pain and sorrow is going to be probably doubled when it comes to some type of grieving, depression, because the house represents pain and sorrow, and the planet represents expansion. Now, I've also traveled. Now, Jupiter represents, higher, well, I'm sorry, Sagittarius represents traveling and foreign. But, it's not much of a difference because the planet represents higher learning. So for anything learning about foreign or foreigners and stuff like that, that's pretty much higher learning. You're escaping the route of where you were born, and expanding your mind, right? For me, learning about, I was always loved the learning of saints and demons. I love watching movies about stuff that has to do with this type of horror. Some people call horror mystery or thriller. Loved it. I don't kill things, by the way. It's a shadow side, not a color. But yes, that is a shadow side of Pisces. If I had Jupiter in Pisces, and if I had that malefic node affect me, or the malefic placement in my chart affect me, I would probably be a color. Yeah. Sexual, physical, and verbal abuse. I've been through stuff like that. One or two of them.